So, hey guys,
Hello everyone. Nice to see you again.
good to see you again. I'm Philippa,
I'm Leopold.
and we're back again. We have
Yay.
yeah, we have a few things we want to talk about, and we were having a bit of a chat before. And every time Leopold was saying something exciting, I'm like, Leopold, stop! Let's record. Let's record it. So,
Sure.
so basically, we want to talk a bit about the current energies, but it's mainly about eclipses. And Leopold was saying some really interesting things about Uranus and Taurus, and it's in its last few degrees of Taurus before it moves into Gemini. I think it's like 23, yeah, 24 degrees actually. It just goes into 24 for the eclipse. So maybe you can talk a bit about this, and then we can move to the subject of the upcoming two eclipses.
Yes, sure. Thank you again, and I'm very happy to be on Malachite once again. The eclipse season usually we have to think of the eclipse season like two events a year will happen for 30, 35 days usually, and they have a strong impact in the year. Especially now, we have a closing season here with Pisces and Virgo that is very important. Why? Because Neptune and Saturn are in Pisces and they are closing a big cycle, a huge cycle that we can call the cycle of Neptune, which is 160 years, 65 years, and then a huge cycle also of moving from the age, the Piscean age, which is 2000 plus years, to moving slowly into the age of Aquarius as well. So, of course, again, having this new moon and then this full moon here in the eclipse season on this axle, which is Pisces and Virgo, is very important. And it's the axle for the ones who know a bit about astrology. Is the axle of spirituality. Is the axle of the axis of health and also of water. So mental health, spirituality, and also waters. Waters, which means also emotions and all that. We've been talking a lot about all these symbolisms. So having an eclipse season in that zone of the zodiac is very important and very felt, I believe, in everyone person's life. I think it's a very, very strong energy. And we can see that the planets which are in Pisces are actually sextiling Uranus. And Uranus, it's a bit like Uranus is looking at this eclipse season starting on the 14th of March, is looking at this full moon, this first total lunar eclipse, and he's saying something, and he's sending a trine to the moon. So on one side you have the moon, and he's sending a trine saying, yes, the past has to go, and yes, I am here to free you guys from the past and the material. Don't forget that the moon is a calcified past, material past that is not practical anymore, that is not functional anymore. The moon is not only the feminine, the grandmother, the mother, the feelings. No, the moon is also the calcified past, the material past that doesn't work anymore. So Uranus is saying, I need to change this. And it's next to the south node also. So the nodal the nodal the south is also next to the moon, so we here have a double symbol of the past at that point in Virgo. So stop pinpointing Virgo everything. Stop analyzing, pinpointing everything in your brain, in your mental zone, and stop paying too much attention about your past, about your material world, because you are here, present. This doesn't define you. You need freedom from that Uranus point in Taurus. And then seeing what's happening with the sun opposite the moon, Uranus is sending a sextile and also giving his assistance here to push further into that new cycle which will arrive in Aries. So it's a very important energy for me. And what I was saying to you offline is that a lot of people are talking about Uranus in Taurus as being, of course, a change of values, and the world is changing, and we are becoming free, and we are rebels, and we have all these LGBTQ movements, and woke and queer, and everything is happening, and the financial digital movements, and it's very true. But what we say much less on internet is that on a higher degree, on a higher note, on a different conscious level, Uranus looks for freedom specifically from the lower vibration of Taurus, which means free yourself from the material world. Free yourself from the worries you have in this material world, which means I believe, I'm not saying it's specifically correct, but that's what I believe, that's my opinion. Free yourself from the belief that you need monetary resources to be.
Drop mic. The silence. That was
That wasn't an intent. That wasn't my intention. But you know, I could sometimes do a bit of stand up. Yeah.
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 So okay. So, and I think I really like this what you're saying, because of course for some of the people who are watching, listening, Uranus is very connected to the material plane, the earth, possessions, eating, all these things that you need in order to function for your body. Taurus is also connected to the body, comfort, blah blah blah. Um, so, and in a way, Taurus only believes if it sees something, right?
Saint
And then
Thomas.
yeah, and Taurus is connected to Scorpio on the spectrum, and Scorpio is like, I believe even if I don't see, right? I can see I can see what is invisible. Taurus is like, I believe only what is visible. And I believe Uranus goes into Gemini in June sometime.
Yes, somewhere there. Yes,
I'm
somewhere
like,
there.
oh, because I told you Uranus is on my DC, right? So
Mm-hmm.
like, so as it keeps going closer to my descendant, I'm like, oh my God, then it's going to enter my seventh house. So anyway, but I think it's really, really interesting what you've said, because Uranus, of course, is a planet of freedom, and about and Uranus also is connected to the higher consciousness, the consciousness of your higher self. And when I have a Venus in Taurus, and when it was conjuncting when Uranus was conjuncting my Venus, I had a lot of experiences of this sort, but also connected to other Venusian things, where suddenly something out of the blue happens, but it was something that a bit eclipsy, a bit not like an eclipse. It was stuff that I actually, whether in that point in time or later, I realized was good for me, but I didn't have the balls to be able to do it. And it also forced me to have to deal with uncertainty, right? But I remember something happening to me, and I wanted to move out of this place that I was living in, and suddenly something happened from outside where I had to leave. But I was already unhappy, but I just didn't want to change. Uranus change,
Yeah.
Taurus comfort, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's really interesting, because at this point in time, we're beginning to see through a lot of the veils of the fact that we've, especially with the Pluto and Capricorn era that we've been living in, the kind of way we've been feeding into capitalism, 9 to 5 life, 2.1 babies, all of these many things. And all of this has been slowly breaking down, but we're still caught in the system. And I think especially when you watch the news nowadays, the general news that you see, you can be really shocked and overwhelmed by the power, Pluto, of, you know, powerful oligarchs, right? That's Pluto Capricorn stuff, that are using Pluto in Aquarius and using technology and all of these many things to control us. And nowadays there are so few people who are actually in control, and you realize, oh my God, I'm a part of this system, and the people in power are, in my belief, nuts. And how can I also be okay today in my body, Taurus, be connected to my spirituality, Pisces, right? My connection to my higher realm and kind of connection to my brothers and sisters, you know, in this cosmos. How can I be here and know that I'm safe, Taurus, even if there's money not coming into my bank account, even if certain foods or things I'm not able to access, my freedom actually of accessing them again, Uranus is taken away from me. And you know, Leopold, we here in Kenya, but not just in Kenya, a lot of people got affected by the change of the cuts, the US aid cuts. And a lot of my clients, one-on-one clients, friends of friends, a lot of people, not just in Kenya, were getting affected. It's not just about the healthcare, right? Which is actually Virgo South Node, right? But a lot of people have been affected by it. And it is terrible and not easy, but in some ways, I've actually never had a 9 to 5 in my life. Okay. It's not easy having your own schedule, being in charge of what you do equals how much you get. It's not easy. But sometimes when I look at people who've had a 9 to 5 and have always consistently had a certain amount of money, I can understand how it's frightening to not have that consistency and have it taken. But especially when you're used to that, it can be really frightening. And when your sense of self is also connected to that. So I'm not making a critique of things, but I think it's very much coming to the fore where suddenly it's like, who's actually providing for me, right? And how much power does a person who is providing for me have? That may be your boss, that may be the funding that you're getting for whatever you're running, that may be your clients, that may be the provider of the Most High, right? And again, Pisces, am I helpless in this process, right? Or am I surrendering to the process? And I think it's really interesting, I know for myself with the Uranus and Taurus, is like, a bit like what you were saying before the call, watching yourself and you're like, okay, I know I'm learning something here. I know I don't always know what I'm learning here, but I know some of what I'm learning here. And I know I need to get around this concept. And the concept and getting around the concept, it's taking me a bit longer than I would like. Okay, I seem to be repeating this second year, this module. I don't know why I'm back here. Can we just skip it? And it's like, and you know, again with the integrity, it's like you keep trying to clean it and work it, and you know the concept. Sometimes you get the concepts and you keep working on it, but you still see some other things, and you're like, no, I got it. I know I'm cool without physical resources. No, I'm cool. But you know that there's this other part of yourself, you know?
Yeah.
Right? And it's interesting because it's also a cleansing, and Virgo and Pisces is also about purification, right? And actually there's a it reminds me of actually a surah from the Quran that was about the Prophet, and it's a very beautiful surah. And this one time, basically, the Prophet Muhammad, if I remember correctly, he kind of when he was much younger, he fell down on the ground, and I think he felt like he was being attacked by an angel. In Islam, they believe a lot in angels. And it was Jibril, Archangel Gabriel, who came to him, and he felt like this angel was attacking him. And the angel pulled something from his heart. And the surah is called Surah Al-Yusra, I think. But basically, it's about the idea of the angel had to take a part of him that was like, let's say black, like not clean, not purified, had to take it out of him in order for the prophet to move to the next level.
Okay.
And in the surah they talk about after suffering comes ease, after suffering comes ease. But just this idea that sometimes we have to go through this process of purification and we don't know how long it's going to take. And we can surrender to the process of purification. We can surrender to all the things that we know and know how to do. But sometimes there's a process that is happening on many, many levels. And I think now I'm digressing. You were supposed to be giving me cues. I was supposed to be giving you cues. But I wanted to say a few things before I hand it back to you. I think it was really interesting what you said about the moon, because because the first eclipse is, yes, a lunar eclipse, which means that it's a full moon. And at the full moon, it's like where parts are being illuminated that we have not seen, but where the moon has the moon has become larger from the things that we've planted. There we see what has been planted and what has not been planted. And as you may or may not know, the yoga classes that I've been doing, I've been linking them to the planets. So I remember last night was about Mars, and a few weeks ago we was on the moon, and I was reading Liz Green's book again, Luminaries. And she was saying that very much exactly what you've said, and I'm such a big fan of Liz Green, but she was also saying that the moon also is about our unfulfilled desires, right? And the moon, of course, is the emotion. It's also connected to the infant, the virgin, the mother, the crone. But through this process, there are things that we wish for that come to be, and there are other things that don't come to be. And when I mention also the infant, there are things that our infantile, childlike self wants to come to be, and sometimes it's right. So I think that's really interesting, the way you kind of called it calcified, which I would have thought was more like a moon in Capricorn than moon Virgo. But yeah, it's this idea of the moon is always linked to the past.
Always.
The moon
No
is the
matter, no
past,
matter the sign, no matter the sign.
no matter the sign, you know.
Yeah.
And also what's really, really interesting is the moon is also, Liz Green was saying, it's often the first indicator of who we are, because the moon is our connection to our mother, where we've come from. Then later we individuate, and then we get to know our sun. But the moon is this relationship, right? And as we all know, the relationship that we have to our parents will always have mistakes. That is part of the process of being a human being. So we as children, as babies who are feeding off of our family, are being nurtured by our parents or primary caregiver, will have our needs not met, full stop. That's why the baby is crying. From
Yeah.
day one, you have failed the baby. Congratulations, day one failed, but you stay in
Yeah.
this module for a long time, right?
Yeah.
So I guess what it is it's very interesting. The idea is that we will always not have our wishes fulfilled. And that is a very painful process of being
Of course.
a human being. But also and the moon, I think, is quite secret, because sometimes we don't always reveal what is in our heart and what we want to, because maybe we're asking for more, right? So, and I wanted to add that, but also not to forget that the second eclipse that we have at the end of March is, yes, we have the nodal axis of Pisces and Virgo, but this eclipse is in the sign of Aries, and it's closing off. It's closing off the series of eclipses we've had in Aries and Libra, but it also, in a way, is touching the spots where Mercury and Venus went retrograde, right? Which is very interesting, and which we'll come to a bit later. But it also is creating a new energy in that space that now is paving the way for Neptune and Saturn when they eventually move through Aries. So we're having a closure, as you mentioned, but we're also having a beginning. So it's like, how can we, a bit like Taurus, how can we move the soil? The soil is the same, but you're moving it in the pot, right, to create a new type of soil.
Totally.
And then also, like with so you were saying that the Uranus is making the trine to the moon, so it's creating like an easy path, which is also brilliant to have moon Uranus trine, because Uranus also creates new avenues, new ideas, revolutionary thoughts, like just things that are something that you may not have thought of that is coming from a very like lightning bolt, in a lightning bolt way. But also with the sextile to the sun, is sextiles are opportunities, but you have to work on it a bit. And I think that's the way I understand it. A sextile, and you can maybe add to it, is a sextile is like you need to create some work, but when they work together, Sun and Uranus, it creates this incredible avenue. And that's Pisces and that's Taurus. So it's also about the spiritual, it's also about the intuitive, it's also about the feeling. And Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac, Taurus is the second. So it's also a very interesting kind of relationship, because there's some, yeah, it's like you're bringing both worlds together. Um, so yeah, so now I'm going to throw it back to you and hear what you have to say. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Thank you. I think it's very correct, and I just wanted to add to the moon, just to add on a little bit on these green concepts, and it's very correct. But also not to forget that the moon, since it's our satellite and it's the closest, constantly moving around the Earth, don't forget that the moon is a primary veil. The moon is constantly veiling all the planets that are behind her. When she turns around the Earth, she's veiling every single asteroid, planet, energy, force, radiation that is coming to planet Earth. Which means that you, as an observer, are ultimately veiled by the moon. So the cosmos is what you can see, but not what's beyond the moon,
I mean,
because
when she becomes full, that you don't see the
no,
rest. Yeah.
per se, as a
Yeah.
material body. So in the symbolism, you have to understand that you always have to overgrown. That overgrowing, that's why you're talking about the infant. You're always here on this incarnated life to move beyond your moon as a symbol. You need to move beyond and see what's beyond your past, your identity, your mother, your calcified material world. Oh yeah, but I'm like this and I'm like that and I grew up poor, so I will be poor all my life. All these things are stuck into the moon as well, because she's here so close to us that she's veiling. So that's why also in esotericism they will tell you that the moon is veiling Neptune or Uranus or Pluto or else, depending on what you have in your chart. But it's very important to understand, since we are in eclipse season, that the moon in a way is very comforting and very maternal, kind of nurturing energy, and at the same time it's like a mother who wants to protect you from everything, and uh, uh, enables you to grow, enables you to experiment, to realize what reality really is. So here, of course, you will have a beautiful example with the total lunar eclipse, because she will even veil the sunlight. So that's the energy of the moon. And more you grow, and it's funny because you were talking about the prophet and Jibril is the moon. Gabriel is the moon. So you have to understand that it's in the religions as well. They are using a cosmogony, a cosmology that is unsaid, because you need to pass initiations to understand the deeper meaning of all this. You need to go further deep down into what is. And that's what this eclipse season is asking us. Can you go closer to a real spirituality? Can you understand how to love yourself and others like the Christ, or like any prophet came on this planet to love and to show and to give you the example, Pisces, And can you free yourself a little bit, at least? Because sometimes people say to me, yeah, but Leo, it's impossible. Of course it's impossible, but it's still doable at some ratio. It's not about doing it totally. You're not superhuman, of course, but you can do better. You can definitely do better. The creation knows you're not perfect, but you can do better.
No, but it's also, um, yeah, they say, like, maybe you've heard this before, that with birds, they, God bless the birds, huh? They wake up in the morning, sunrise or before sunrise, and they leave their nests and they go and they whoo, and fly everywhere with the faith and the trust that they will be fed and looked after and they will find their food.
That's why it's beautiful to be in connection with Mother Nature. And that's why it's beautiful to be living in nature. And that's the sad lesson we have to learn nowadays, unfortunately, because we left our Mother Earth alone. We destroyed her and we went to a world where we believed we could live without her. And she was there saying, "But I used to nourish you. What do you expect? You're not gonna live without me. What do you expect? You live on my back. You live on top of me. You cannot live without me." So this is a very interesting season of eclipses where you can learn and grow and think on how you can better yourself. And you will see during the eclipse season, which is roughly 35 days, on this 24th degrees of Pisces, where the sun is, where Saturn is not so far, where Neptune's been charged up, you will see it's a very important degree. It's the eclipse season. It's 24 degrees Pisces. Look where 24 degrees Pisces falls into your chart. That's the first step of someone who wants to look into this eclipse season. You have to look into your mirror first. Look into your chart. And if you don't know your chart, go to an astrologer. Think about your chart as a meditation, as a lesson, as a mirror. In Snow White, when the witch is saying, "Mirror, mirror, tells me who is the most beautiful," blah blah blah, this symbolism is actually her looking at her chart.
Okay. Okay.
Okay? It's
Yeah.
very important to understand that your only and real mirror is your astrological chart. That's the only real mirror you'll get. So learn, study it, understand where you're beautiful, where you're ugly, what's going on. And for you guys and for the Malachite, I also looked into the mandala in the astrological symbolism of
Ah,
24th
sapien symbol.
of the symbiont. Yeah, of
I also
course.
looked, but I looked
Ah,
for
look, I said it first. I said
crazy. But I looked for Aries. I looked for the next
Oh,
eclipse.
you look okay, okay, fair enough. Well, I will
They
say
look,
the
yeah.
first one. Great, great. You see, darling, that's why Malachite is. That's why Malachite is
Oh,
alive, you know? So looking at the 24th, actually 25th, because in symbolism you have to look at the next degree. Looking at the 25th degree of Pisces, symbolizing this eclipse season and the first total lunar eclipse, what Dane Rudyard is saying, he's saying, let me get it here. He's saying a religious organization succeeds in overcoming the corrupting influence of perverted practices and materialized ideals. You can't be any more precise. We have here a main issue. We know we're going to go straight in to a material world. We thought we knew what the material world meant in the 80s, in the 90s, in the 2000s. We thought we knew. We didn't know. Now AI is coming. And now something will happen like a change that we can't even realize. Even the great thinkers, they can't project themselves. It's such a huge change that we can't project ourselves. It's the same huge change as the the beginning of writing. That's the kind of change we are in front of. It's very serious times. It's very serious times. So we have to humble ourselves and realize, okay, I decided to be here present during this very important time of humanity. What am I supposed to do in all this? Am I jumping into this materialism? Am I looking at my brothers, my sisters? Am I helping? Am I just following stupidly what's going on? We will have to stand up. And of course, that's where Uranus is also showing up, that Taurus energy, because Taurus is also the waking up of the third eye. So moving away from the veil of the moon trining and freeing yourself from the illusion of this reality, of this materiality. So there's a huge challenge this eclipse season is bringing. And again, like I was saying, it all is sextiling the sun, which sextile is a Venusian energy. So there is also a very Venusian energy, Taurus, Pisces, also an energy of love. So for me, it means that the only way you can do it is through self love. How much do you love yourself? How much do you respect yourself? How much do you love your brothers and sisters? Not enough if you don't first love yourself and your limitations and what you're good at, what you're bad at, So if I have to advise something is really study your astrological chart and study what you can bring to this world. It's for me, it's no point watching the television. There is no point at all. I've been stopping watching television for 15 years, and I'm so ever more educated and so aware of what's going on in the world. You don't need television. You don't need television because it's stressful. It's fearful. It doesn't serve you. It doesn't serve your upbringing, your waking up, your third eye. It doesn't serve it. So try to inform yourself differently. And again, Uranus is the planet of stress as well. So there's a whole bunch of people that will translate that Uranian energy into stress and fears. So we have to pay attention to those things and not tap into these fears and this stress, but rather root yourself into a spirituality and realize, what am I good at? What can I bring? How can I love myself better? How can I respect myself better and at least make a better world around me? Maybe around three, four people max. If you do that, the creation will be very happy. I always be people are always talking about Congo and Palestine and Russia and Ukraine and America. Of course, it's very important to be aware of what's happening in the world still. But what do you do to your neighbor? What do you do for your cat? What do you do for this parent you can't stand? What do you do to this brother that betrayed you? What do you do to your sister that disappointed you or insulted you? That's where you can do something. So that's a couple of symbolisms that come through my mind talking about this lunar eclipse and this eclipse season per se.
So I have a few things to add. Based on what you've said, it's like with that Pisces, because the Pisces is so intuitive and so connected to, let's say, spirit. And I've been actually feeling it, especially the last 6 weeks. There's a slipstream. Like if you just, again, Taurus, be in your body, you can feel, I feel, there's like a kind of, I don't know, it's like, how would I explain it? It's like you mentioned veil, but it's this kind of other realm. And if you go there, you're also connecting kind of like to a web of information, spiritual slipstream, where it's all part of your daily life, Virgo, but you can go there. And in a way, through being there, you're able to still be existing in this world, but not allowing yourself to be brought down just to that 3D level. So I guess based on what you're saying and what I'm saying is there is an ability to keep slipping into the space where it doesn't mean you're not feeling things, it doesn't mean you're not getting scared, it doesn't mean all of these many things. But just remember, there's an alternate, parallel way of living and being, where in a way you're part of it all, and you are supported and looked after in terms of even your material needs, right?
Yes, very correct.
And um and the other thing is, it's basically, I guess, what I'm just reiterating, what of course, yes, it's very scary times, right? But we have a choice as to how we want our vibration to be, because fear is so infectious, and it's such a wormhole that it's like down, gone, down this. It's a very
Yes,
slippery slope. So it doesn't mean, like I keep telling people, it doesn't mean you don't care. It doesn't mean you don't care.
not at all.
But when you believe in things like spirituality, you also believe in your spiritual power, your spiritual connectedness. And that means that it's really about a time to be in stillness when you find the time, to be in your sacred space or a quiet space, to pray, be in stillness, send healing, ask for
Most likely.
the healing that you are giving. Even if you don't even know how to give healing, you just make the intention of it, and you also ask it to join all the other people, right, that are sending that healing, or imagining just a light, pink light, great is a great light, green light, gentle light, coming towards the earth, certain parts of the earth, going towards certain people, towards our cosmos, and just keeping your vibration higher, because you're also able to psychically assist the world by having a stronger vibration. Doesn't mean you don't care. Doesn't mean you're going to be on a high vibration the whole day, because sometimes you'll go
No.
like this. But it's also about sometimes trying to bounce back a lot faster. Again, Taurus, let me just be in my body. Let me go for a walk. Let me do 20 squats. Like, how can I just be back here? Let me get something to eat. Maybe I need a nap, whatever it is. But just like, it's okay, I'm feeling like this, but I need to bounce back. But I wanted to mention something about this second eclipse, and then I also wanted to talk a bit about eclipses. But before I do, I want to check if you have anything else that you want to say based on this before we move along.
I just want to add also to bring awareness to the people that, guys, this is very difficult times, but we are also born and bred through a relationship to this reality through consumption. That's all we do day in, day out. We consume everything, services, information, entertainment, what you call it, everything that we like that brings us a boost, a dopamine boost, will be after consuming something. We need to realize this because we are in an ocean, Pisces, of emotions. And this doesn't give you a clear view. If you are in the middle of an ocean, you don't even know where is north, where is south, where is east, where is west. And realizing this will bring you some kind of clairvoyance of what you are, realizing what you are. I think it's a great moment to realize that we are what you call it, I would call it a dopamine crash. We are in a world where we realize that we can't get more because we've been addicted, Pisces, to consuming to a point where, of course, AI is going to bring us even more consumption. But before you get into that AI world, realize how stuck we are in this consumption attitude, and then realize how you can free yourself. Uranus in Taurus.
It's very interesting. Yeah, I'm with you. Genau. So it's interesting, yes, because like, how much are you consuming and how much are you actually giving? Then I think
Producing.
about producing. Then I think about also for ourselves, we're also artists, right? But it's not just about being an artist. It's about how are you creating something in the material, from your spiritual self in the material plane, Taurus, right? To give towards, the brother sisterhood. So it's a question of, are you co-consuming, right? Or are you co-creating? And from a spiritual perspective, it's all about, we are co-creators, right? That's part of, you're here to create your reality and collaborate. And I think it's really, actually really interesting. And again, like this year is very much about beginnings, endings, not just because it's eclipse season, but because of this Pisces, Aries, Pisces, like this. But I think also with the Saturn eclipse of, the Saturn aspect to this 13th, 14th March eclipse, it is a kind of reality check of, okay, what is really happening in my life? What is not working? What am I seeing truly? What do I need to change, right? About my lifestyle, blah, blah, blah. And about my belief systems, right? And my faith. But also, it's very interesting when you mention this idea of consumption, and then I'm talking about this idea of co-creating. And the second eclipse is in Aries, and Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, and Aries is very much about being the pioneer and starting something new, right? So so it's kind of like, okay, what am I coming to the end of? And what do I want to give one more chance to begin, because the Aries Libra eclipses have been going on. So if there's any kind of messages we've been getting the last few years, we need to ask ourselves, okay, what can I step into now? Like, what is it, the 29th of March in Aries? What can I jump into? What can I even plant a small seed into? Of course, it's during some retrograde periods. But I wanted to, I wanted to talk about a bit about the second eclipse and then talk about eclipses in general. Okay. So the second eclipse, according to my time zone, is on March 29th, 9 degrees of Aries. And this 9 degrees is interesting, maybe we already mentioned, because I think Mercury goes retrograde on the 9 degrees. So we have the eclipse here. I don't know which direction this is, but we have Mercury going retrograde earlier on the 9, right? No, first we had the Venus going retrograde on the 10th degree. And just a degree away, the Mercury goes retrograde. And just less than 2 weeks later, on top of it, we have the eclipse. So this is a very, let's say, very heightened or very sensitive degree point. Okay. Now, as I like to always say, the same way we have this Pisces eclipse, the Pisces eclipse also affects the Virgos and also affects the Geminis and the Sagittarians. Of course, it depends on the degree. And this depends if you've got planets and points, okay? So with the Aries, we talk about this point, but it also affects the Libras, the Cancers, the Capricorns. Now, why I mentioned this is because whatever was happening around the period of the Venus stationing retrograde, which was, I think, the 28th, like 26th, 27th, 28th of February, there's some events there that may get touched again during the Mercury stationing retrograde, and then also during eclipse season. So there's a whole story, and every time a planet makes an aspect to this 9, 10 degrees, it touches on that. But again, every time, like what I always find fascinating is every time the moon, like with these Aries Libra eclipses or Pisces Virgo, every time the moon is in Pisces or Virgo, for me, a month later, something happens, something small. I always find, because of the Pisces Virgo, Gemini or Sag, when the moon is in Gemini or Sagittarius, same thing happens. So I guess what I'm saying is this becomes a very sensitive point, but I want to, now I'm getting nerdy. But the thing is that in October last year, on the 2nd of October, the eclipse that we had then was 10 degrees of Libra, which is exactly opposite, right? Just by 1 degree. And we have 360 degrees, as you know. So there also is a connection to the events around the eclipses at that time. Of course, they're part of the same couple, but around eclipses end of September, early October, events that happen then that is directly opposite it. And they're sister signs, okay? Last year, October 2nd, 2024. Now, this is a bit more far-fetched, but December 25th, 2019, we had an eclipse. So that was Christmas Day 2019. We had an eclipse 4 degrees of Capricorn, which is still connected to this axis, right? 6 degrees off. But then maybe if you can remember what you were doing on Christmas Day 2019. And then just before that, July 2nd, 2019, we had an eclipse 10-degree Cancer. So the 10-degree Cancer is actually really catching this eclipse that we're going to have March 29th. So again, it's like what was happening during that period. That's more featuring Cancer themes, right? 10 of Cancer. So it's Cancerian themes, but it's still linked to the same axis of beginning of things, of who you are, your identity, Aries, your self-identity, Libra, your identity in relation to people, another person, Cancer, your relationship to home and how you feel secure, and Capricorn, your relationship to your job and in the public life, right? I don't remember what I was doing Christmas Day 2019. Christmases are not so prominent for me, but on that July 2nd, that's when I met my astrology teacher. Yeah.
There you go. There you go. Yes, 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 yes. Pretty obvious. I don't remember. I have a very bad memory also, so I won't be good at remembering even Christmas 2019. It's like tough for
Yeah.
me to go back to it. But yeah, you're totally correct. It's the way you can also picture your progress by looking into these windows, and realizing, okay, what happened since? And how did I move from that energy? You can definitely look into it. And same thing for Venus retrograde. You can look into March 2017 and look from March 2017, my relationships, how are they? Am I still with the same person? Am I single now? With my job, with my boss relationship, my colleagues, am I much better now? Or am I still bullied? Did I understand what I was into back then? It's very interesting. I think astrology is a great tool also to look back into a specific window and to check upon your progress. Yeah. And you said you had a symbolism also for the
Yeah.
degree, for the ninth degree. Yeah, don't forget it. We want to hear
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. So okay, wait, let me get it from my laptop because I wrote it down, but I wrote it like it's quite messy.
Like a Scorpio.
Yeah. I was writing it and I was like, Philippa, just read it first
Or like
before
a
you start
Gemini.
writing it down.
Okay.
Okay, so again, I'm going to do so the eclipse is on the 9th and the 9 degrees of Aries, but with the Sabian symbols, you always move it 1 degree ahead. Both of them are very interesting. So Aries 10 degrees. A teacher gives new symbolic forms to traditional images. Revision of attitude at the beginning of a new cycle of experience. Okay, which is a lot of like what we talked about. But what I liked about that image was a teacher gives new symbolic forms to traditional images. So we got the teacher, and we ourselves are also our teachers, but we have, if you want to believe, spirit is also a teacher, and new new symbolic forms to traditional images. So that means that nothing is changing. What I understand is nothing is changing, but the understanding of it is different. And of course,
Exactly.
because we're so familiar with obviously with symbols, but with glyphs, it's like symbols are so powerful, and you
Yes.
infuse the symbol with something. It's a very so the form doesn't change, but it does. Um, and then um, and then 11 Aries, because I think Venus went retro on 10 degrees, right? The ruler of a nation. Keynote, the power resulting from the formal integration of the collective desire for order. So the power resulting from the formal integration of the collective desire for order. So, and here, then he goes on about centralization of power. But I thought, and it was so interesting, the ruler of a nation, because And that's the thing, like, yeah. So anyone who's watching
You
me,
see, you don't
yeah,
need television.
yeah, 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 yeah. So yeah, so anyone who's watching, maybe you're aware of Dane Rudia, but he does an analysis of the astrological, called the astrological mandala, about the Sabian symbols. We won't go into too many details, but it's absolutely fascinating.
Fascinating. And
Fascinating
the,
stuff.
the correctness of all this, and every time a planet or conjunction, an eclipse is happening on an exact degree, you can
Yeah,
always go and look into that symbolism of that particular degree and get
yeah.
something out of it. Like you pull out a card, like you read into that degree to understand what's going on in this world. It is very powerful. Great work.
Sometimes when I work with clients more long term, I look up certain things. Like sometimes, I look at the chart and I'm like, okay, that sun, I need to look up the Sabian or the South Node, North Node.
Yeah, you feel it. You
And
feel it.
yeah, and then I ask them also, like, I don't tell them what it's about, but I read it out to them and ask them what comes from that, like what inspires them. But I wanted to say a few more things about the eclipses in general. So I'm a big
Hmm.
fan of eclipses. I really, really like eclipses. I don't know why. Maybe because they bring change.
Of course.
Okay. And different schools of thought have different opinions of eclipses. I like to believe eclipses are good, but sometimes often life-changing things happen around eclipses. Okay. But what I do believe very strongly is eclipses direct you towards your soul path, where your soul is meant to be going. If you're going off track, something happens, the eclipse redirects you. Eclipses are about endings and beginnings, things getting swept out of your life, new things coming in. And actually, the last 6 days, like watching people around me, there are huge things happening in their lives. And I'm like, that's an eclipse. That's an eclipse. And really exciting stuff. Like suddenly something closes. So with an eclipse, if something clears out, sometimes something immediately comes in. I was with a friend, she got like a gangster, anyway, something gangster happened to her. Within 7 hours, something new had completely happened in a really, really exciting way. So eclipses fast forward things, right?
Yes.
For example, you're saying, I want to go to China, I want to move to China in 2035. Suddenly, you bump into the Chinese ambassador. He's like, you can come on my jet plane in 2 days. I'll give you a free visa for 20 years, all expenses paid. And you're like, holy moly. You get scared. You think, am I ready for it? But you have to jump. So eclipses are often invitations that are coming from outside that you have to jump. If you feel like it, if it resonates with you, it
Hmm.
helps to jump on it and go for it. Eclipses are not the best time to initiate because, like, as you mentioned, eclipses on one hand don't always make things clear to us. And eclipses also, like, not everything is clear to us. So it's better to wait after an eclipse to make a decision, because that decision often means that once you make it, you can't go back. Okay. It's like you're here and you're crossing the valley. And once this thing happens, once you cross the bridge, you can't go back. So you have to be very careful of what you decide and what you initiate. But if somebody invites you to something or something comes to you, it's for you to decide, okay, how do I feel about responding to this thing? So they're kind of like wild cards, fast forwarding things, and but they can also bring some aspects of truth or things that you were unaware of to your
Totally.
attention. And you should take everything very seriously, even if it just sounds, even if it's, um Yeah, and of course, if it may not be happening to you directly, it could be people around you that are having things. It's just also worthwhile to give people some grace during this period. And sometimes, like our friend Chris Brennan, he says often sometimes it can be something very small that happens, and then it slowly builds
Hmm.
at 6 months later at the next eclipse cycle. Um, but also, there was one more thing I wanted to say about eclipses, but I completely forgot. But yeah. Oh, yeah. If you have your planets or points that are, I would say, like 0 to 6 degrees or 5 degrees around. So, like, let's say the eclipse now is on the 23rd of 23 degrees of Virgo. If you have your birthday, like say 5 days around it, or you have a degree point, 22 Virgo, 25 Virgo, even 26, 27 Virgo, or Pisces, or Gemini, or Sagittarius, or any points around there, it makes a huge impact. And usually that area of your life that is impacted will look completely different in 6 months or 1 year. Yeah.
Yeah, that's about it.
That's
That's
about
about
it.
it. That's about it. Well explained. Well explained. Yes.
So as we close off, we again want to thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't. If you connect with
Yes.
this, if it interests you, share with a friend, a colleague, a lover, a parent, a pet. And leave your comments if you'd like us to talk about certain things. Please share that with us. We're both individually on Instagram, and sometimes we also have Insta Lives, but you can find our Instagram, you can check out our websites, and we do one-on-one sessions online and in person. And we offer a variety of things, natal charts that we do separately, as well as many, many, many other things.
Yes, great. Thank you so much. And once again, I'm so happy to share all this information with you on Malachite. And yes, indeed, if you have any questions or for the next subject, for the next video, please leave a comment and we can move on from there and have a great time to learn a bit more about astrology again.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
so
thank you, thank
much.
you,
Bye
everyone.
bye.
Lots of
See
love from
you.
us at Malachite. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.